It's kind of stay-at-home mom.
Is that the main reason why we haven't seen you really in
That's one of
10
them.
years, 5 kids,
That's some of
parenting?
it. That's some of it. Parenting, making sure that they had normalcy, privacy, and the right to be real people, without the scrutiny and the pressure of, the challenges that the media can put up, sometimes. I wanted them to have a real childhood, real childhoods.
And what beside the kids is the reason why we haven't seen you?
I wanted a real life as well, out of public scrutiny. I wanted to be able to live, to reclaim my private life, to reclaim my individuality, outside of, sort of mass media scrutiny. I wanted that freedom to do whatever I wanted to do.
And did you get it?
Absolutely, I did. Yeah.
The year is 2000, and I'm backstage with D'Angelo moments before he goes on stage in New Orleans. This is the king of neo-soul at his zenith, touring his then new record, Voodoo, which was less an album and more of a sonic experience that confirmed that he is the great soul man of his era. So at this particular moment, I'm in the backstage room with him, talking to him. The whole band is there. Questlove is there. And we're chit-chatting when Quest says, "Okay, y'all, let's start the prayer." So I'm standing next to D'Angelo when we link hands for the prayer. So as Questlove says the prayer, I'm holding hands with D'Angelo, like fingers all interlaced. He's got really strong, muscular hands. And he's way into the prayer and excited to go on stage, so he's gripping my hand tightly. So my left hand is enveloped in his right hand, and he's squeezing really hard. And I can feel his rings, his many thick rings, cutting into my fingers. It was a lot. But then he let go, and I realized that I had had an experience that no other writer would ever have. And I had had an experience that many of his fans would want to have, would love to have. I could describe to them in detail the feeling of holding D'Angelo's hand. Now, I knew if I wrote it that way, some people would say, "Oh, look, he's gay." But I didn't care. It felt so incredible to be able to put the reader in the position, in the feeling of holding hands with this love god D'Angelo, that I did not care what you thought about me. I was going to put you in a moment that was unforgettable. So that was the lead of my story, describing holding D'Angelo's hand. But I split the difference by putting it in the second person. So rather than saying, "I held D'Angelo's hand," the line was, "D'Angelo is holding your hand. His thick, muscular fingers are interlocked with yours. You can feel the baby oil he rubs on his skin before each show. You can feel the pressure of his vice squeeze. You can feel his rings cutting into your skin. It hurts. It hurts good, though." Anyway, that tour experience was epic. I traveled with D and Questlove and the gang through multiple cities and backstages and stages and buses and hotels, writing a story on D'Angelo for the cover of Rolling Stone. And in that experience, I got to see the heart of the neo-soul movement. Let me tell you, up in Questlove's hotel room with D'Angelo, I saw the real reason why the neo-soul movement was so powerful. When I was on tour with D'Angelo, the neo-soul movement was at its peak. That year, 2000, D'Angelo dropped his second album, Voodoo, which was an absolute monster. And Erykah Badu dropped her unforgettable second album, Mama's Gun, and Jill Scott debuted. And we were already listening to Angie Stone, who'd come out the year before. And people who really loved neo-soul were listening to Michelle Ndegeocello's Plantation Lullabies. That's the real beginning of neo-soul. But the 90s was like watching neo-soul develop and watching the assemblage of the Avengers, a sort of musical superhero group. Like the Avengers, but black musicians. In 95 came D'Angelo's debut. In 96 came Maxwell's debut. In 97 came Erykah Badu's debut. And in 98, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. In the space of just a few years, we watched the rise of one of the great subgenres in musical history, neo-soul. See, neo-soul is soul music shaped by people who loved hip-hop. It melded a soul music sound with a hip-hop aesthetic. Like the way Alicia Keys' epic debut single, Fallen, has this gospel sound and somehow this hip-hop feel in the rhythm. And then in the video, she's going to visit her man in prison. That's so hip-hop. It is true that the original concept was for her to be in prison, which would have been crazy, but the label was not trying to have the world be introduced to her in an orange jumpsuit. But it was a soul song with incredible singing that was also somehow hip-hop coded. Neo Soul was giving you live instrumentation and church-inspired vocals and hip-hop drums and poetry slam vibes. The artists were proudly organic in a digital era. The artists were historically fluent, but not overly nostalgic. You could see their inspirations, Marvin Gaye, Sade, A Tribe Called Quest, but they didn't seem trapped in all of that. They didn't seem commercial. They felt real. They gave us albums that took us into their private world, so you felt like you were discovering a universe created by D'Angelo or Erykah or Lauryn or whoever. My God, Maxwell's album fully took you into a world of Maxwell. We loved their music, and it wasn't about hits, it was about albums, it was about feel, it was about expressing who they were and expressing who we were. These geniuses gave us epic albums that commented on blackness and society and Mary Jane, and they talked about love, but they talked about so much more than that. They shared their soul on the records. We loved them. We admired them. We wanted to be their friends. And maybe we saw them as superheroes, musical superheroes. Like if D'Angelo was a superhero, he was Soul Man, just imbued with the power of soul from hundreds of years of ancestors. He seemed like a real-life version of Sammy from Sinners, a young southern musical genius with the spirit of the blues all up in him.
I've been hearing about this one particular young man all day. He's supposed to be a bad blues man. Preacher boy, where you at? Come on here, man.
Just like Sammy strolled into that juke joint and blew the roof off, D'Angelo strolled into popular culture and burned the house down. D grew up in Virginia, playing every Sunday in his father's Baptist church, and his older brother told me they never thought that he would be anything other than a musician. So if D as a superhero would be the soul man, Maxwell was the ladies' man. Maxwell seemed like he had been dreamt up in a lab run by black women who wanted to make the ultimate ladies' man soul singer. In real life, he grew up in Brooklyn and was composing songs by 17. I actually met Maxwell a few years before his debut, back during my first year in New York City. Before I was writing for Rolling Stone, I was working at a nightlife-adjacent restaurant, nightclub sort of thing called The Coffee Shop in Union Square. Everybody would come there on their way to a nightclub or on their way back from a nightclub. It was like you were still in the nightclub, but we served food. I was there as a food runner on the late night shift, 10 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m. Maxwell was a waiter on those late hour shifts. In a lot of ways, he was the same in that little environment as he was in the big music scene. Everyone who worked in the restaurant knew him. Everyone liked him. Pretty much everyone wanted to sleep with him. And nobody knew who he wanted to sleep with. And nobody in the restaurant really knew much about him except that they really liked him.
Where'd you wait tables?
The coffee shop.
Yes,
You
I
remember
went to the coffee shop.
Were you there?
I probably not at the same time. I was there in 92. I worked there in 92.
Did we work together? Wait a minute.
Were
Maxwell.
you there in 92? Maxwell. Yes. Maxwell was on the dinner shift.
I always said to myself, this guy looks familiar
remember
to me.
Pony?
And then I trained Maxwell.
You did.
I trained Maxwell, and he used to sing in my ear all the time.
Oh my God.
And I'd be like, Max.
He was the
'cause it
same
Max.
person, right?
The same-
Because nobody knew if he was straight or gay.
No one knew.
Nobody knew anything
No one
outside
knew
the rest of
anything
but
about
everybody
him.
liked him.
Everyone liked him. He's got that spirit. And he would sing in my ear. He gave me a tape of music.
Yeah.
I wish I still had it.
Yeah.
Because I would listen to it all the time. I'd be like, Max, you got to do something with this music.
I knew him from the restaurant. He was one of the coolest guys in there, but what was he all about? I didn't know, but I found out. One night we got off at the same time, about 1, 2 a.m. We were going to the same party, so we said, hey, come by my apartment before we go to the party. It's on the Lower East Side. It's like a 10-foot by 10-foot little tiny room in a share. Mostly racks of musical equipment, and while he got dressed for the party, he played me some of his music. Shit was slamming. I knew that he was going to be a monster. Erykah Badu as a superhero was like the sister whose superpower is having a direct connection to the ancestors. She was our spiritually aware Afrocentric queen singing love songs about, I guess I'll see you next lifetime. You would have thought she strolled in from Wakanda, but she's from Dallas, Texas. She went to the Booker T. Washington Performing Arts High School in Dallas and then studied theater at Grambling. So she had a lot of great Black Southern theater and music and performing arts teachers talking to her and shaping her and influencing her. So when she came to us, she was like this fully formed entity. With Baduism, just like D'Angelo's Brown Sugar, just like Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite, we had an album from a singular genius who was giving us soul music but was also modernizing it and taking it in a new direction. None of these albums seemed like products that were being marketed to us. They seemed like pieces of art coming out of deep musical thinkers. They seemed like real artists, genuinely fascinating people taking us on an authentic creative journey. In some ways, Lauryn Hill seemed like the new Nina Simone, pro-Black, fiery, political, amazing voice. But Lauryn saw herself as the new Bob Marley, a spiritual mystic here to save us through sound. If she was a superhero, she was a woman imbued with the spirit of Bob Marley, giving her the power to make music that brings the entire world together. That's why the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is the greatest selling neo-soul album of them all, a towering landmark that shows a brilliant artist taking soul music and combining hip-hop and soul into one singular beautiful package. All of these neo-soul superstars are blessed with a almost nerdish love of musical history. They became iconic because they are incredibly talented, but also because they were serious students of music. One of my favorite moments of that whole week touring with D'Angelo and Questlove was we were in New Orleans, up in Questlove's hotel room at the W. Him and D'Angelo and me sitting on a couch watching a grainy black and white video from 1964 of James Brown killing it. I referred to that video as a treat. Treats were things that gave them knowledge of the Yoda figures. Treats were generally videotapes, but they could also be audio recordings or books. Yoda figures were the gods of neo-soul, in no particular order. James Brown, Prince, George Clinton, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Nina Simone, Chaka Khan, Al Green, Sly Stone, Jimi Hendrix. Those treats from the Yodas were everything to them. One day I heard Questlove say to D'Angelo, "What would your life be like if you hadn't seen that George Clinton tape?" And D'Angelo said, "Totally different." That blew my mind. These guys were scouring the earth to find videos of their heroes and devouring them into their soul. Quest told me I got bootleg concert connects like fiends got drug dealer connects. During the many years of making Voodoo, those two put themselves through a soul university where they sat there obsessively studying I saw Quest and D'Angelo doing that, but I know that Erykah and Lauryn and Maxwell and Jill were doing it on their own. Alicia, they were doing that too. They were studying deeply to become master musicians. And no, I don't think everyone does that. For sure, it takes a lot of musical knowledge to become a pro at any level. But I think some people put in more work. Some people put in more study. Some people have more reverence for the past. And they come into the game with more talent and more originality. I think the neo-soul legends were greater students of music than other people who came into the game with talent. But there's a reason why Quest and D'Angelo and Erykah and the rest of them were having a sense that they were at war. Quest talked about it more than anybody, but I know D'Angelo and Erykah felt the same way, that they were at war over the future of music. They weren't just making music, they were standing up for authentic music in the face of commercialism. They rose up as a response to what was going on around them, the bad boy shiny suit era and all these R&B songs built on samples and radio hooks rather than sharing your soul. They were a response to heavily produced commercial R&B rather than live instrumentation and spiritual depth. The commercial R&B that they were at war with, that stuff sounded like a product compared to their art. Neo-soul was the sound of integrity. D'Angelo's monster song Untitled gave us a video where he was naked, and a lot of people saw it as a sexual presentation, and it no doubt was, but I saw something more in it. I saw it also as a visual analogy for the sort of music he was making, which was naked, intimate, and raw. That vibe runs throughout neo-soul. The neo-soul movement was rising in heat as the 90s went on. By the late 90s and we get to the early 2000s, hot like fish grease. But by the end of the 2000s, the movement had cooled off. Part of the problem was part of what made it great. The main artists in this genre were making real serious music, and for many of them, it took years to come up with albums. D'Angelo took 4, 8 years in between albums. Maxwell took long breaks. Lauryn made one solo studio album. So the stars of the genre were on the sidelines for long periods of time. That helped push it off of center stage. But neo-soul never died. A lot of its principles and values were enveloped into music. I think there's lots of neo-soul all around us. We just don't call it that anymore. When the original crop of neo-soul superstars were calming down, we still had CeeLo, Anthony Hamilton, and Amy Winehouse. Neo-soul. The name has disappeared, but Frank Ocean is neo-soul. Is Blonde not a deeply personal, soulful yet hip-hop coded album that would fit perfectly alongside those great neo-soul albums from the 90s? The Weeknd is neo-soul. It's soulful singing and trap drums and moody personal lyrics. Again, soul music that's hip-hop coded. But there's always a particular way that neo-soul melds the two. I think about great songs like Mary J. Blige and Method Man, You're All I Need to Get By. That's not neo-soul. That is soul music and hip-hop coming together, but neo-soul brings the two together in a wholly different way. It's not a product. It's not the industry smushing two people together, or smushing two sounds together. It's somehow they make this recombinant thing that is both hip-hop and soul music at once. Janelle Monáe is neo-soul. It's still here. Neo-soul is still alive. It's all around you if you just know where to look. Thank you so much for watching this breakdown of neo-soul, a subgenre I love. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and check out other videos on the channel.